Embracing pain, how God uses struggles to strengthen us. In order to grow, you have to develop some kind of pain in your life. And that's with everything. Even growing as a kid, you used to hear sayings like, oh, you got growing pains when your legs and bones would hurt growing as a little kid. You have little aches as your body is growing. Just about everything in life that we deal with, in order for us to grow, we have to encounter some kind of pain behind it. And God knows this very, very well. Even himself encounters pain several times throughout the Bible. And instead of him avoiding it altogether, he puts himself through it. It makes you really wonder, why would God, being almighty, would put himself through difficult times of his own and experience these things himself? And a lot of that we probably would see is because he wants us to know that he knows what it feels like for us to go through these difficult times, or whatever painful situations any of us are facing. He wants us to know he knows exactly what that is, because he himself has put himself through many, many difficult times, many painful situations, when he could have easily just avoided it completely if he wanted to. But yet he let himself go right through those difficult moments. And he also uses that on us quite a bit. So we all dealt with a lot of pain in our lives. We all experienced tremendous amounts of pain. And like I said before, God himself has even put himself through tremendous amounts of pain. We could even see this back in the book of Genesis when God flooded the earth. Now, there's a lot of ways we could look at why did God flood the earth. And we could see Jesus is going to be coming down the road, and he's going to be brought into this world. And we can see the Nephilim and everything, the bloodline of that being created with the fallen angels. So there's reasons for that. There's reasons for just the wickedness of the world at that time. And we see that God chose Noah and his family, new world of people, new generation of people. And we can see this in Genesis 7:17. In Genesis 7:17, it says, for 40 days, the flood kept coming on the earth, and the waters increased and lifted the ark high above the earth. We see God caused the earth to flood to eliminate a lot of the wickedness of the world and the people that were living at that time, to start a new world. But even going through that, God himself, there was no enjoyment for him to go and do this. And we could see this in the end, because if you look at Genesis 9:13, in Genesis 9:13 it says, I have set my rainbow in the clouds, and it will be the sign of the covenant between me and the earth. Now, why would God create a rainbow? To remind himself not to flood the earth. Now, God's not going to forget something like that. So why would God create a rainbow? So every time he sees it, he's going to remember the time of the flood and what happened to the wicked world of that time. And also, it reminds us of the covenant that he made to never flood the world again. But in order for God to create something like that, it wasn't that he regretted it. It wasn't that he felt like he made a mistake and now here's something to remind myself never to do that again. He did that because it reminds him of the pain that he also went through going through something like that, where he created all these people he loved so tremendously, so much. But in order for him to progress us forward so that we can spend an eternity with him in heaven, it was part of what needed to happen at that time. It was part of the process of what he had to put himself through at that time. See, now, when God was sitting on a throne before he created the angels, before he created the world, before he created everything, he envisioned everything. He knew how everything was going to be. God's never surprised. God never does something and is regretful later, because he already knows the outcome. He already knows the experience of it. But yet, even knowing that, he still puts himself through those experiences and lives through them in those moments, which are painful for him. So as he goes through that, he creates the rainbow as it is a reminder to him, but also it reminds him as well of those moments that he had to go through the earth had to be renewed. And another good point too is Jesus himself, to have his only son come to earth and be mocked, spit on, beaten, and then pinned to a cross. The amount of pain that he had to go through to not step in and eliminate everybody that was involved in a split second to take his son out of that situation, that he had to put himself through those moments of pain and suffer in those moments. You know, God's heart was broken. You know, God was putting himself through a tremendous amount of pain and emotion. We all know God has emotions too, because he talks about joy. He talks about happiness, joy. He talks about the anger of himself. He talks about warnings because he's being frustrated and upset with his people. God has emotions just like us. He's the one that gave us emotions because he has those emotions. And yet he went through all those emotions and feeling what he saw on his son on the cross, just so that at the very end, that when you're in heaven with him, he can look at you in the face and tell you it was worth it. Now imagine that kind of love that he has for you, that he puts himself through this whole list of heartbreaks and emotions and just difficulties when he could have just eliminated himself, avoided everything completely. He didn't have to go through that. He could at least easily just avoid it all and did something else. But yet he put himself through those emotions and through that pain because of how much joy he's going to have when he sees you in heaven and tells you it's worth it. He put him up, or he puts himself through so much, and he can look you in the face and say it was worth it because that's how much he loves you. That's incredible. When you think about it, that's absolutely incredible that he would have that much love for us to put himself through that so much just to tell you he loves you.